This is Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily with Andrew Hustler Paterson and Michael Remis.
Hey, happy Friday, everybody, and welcome to another edition to finish up the week of Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Andrew Paterson along with Michael Remis. And, we got another packed show. This entire week has been bananas, but it's a good bananas because there is so much to talk about. We've got Stanley Cup playoffs to get to. We've got WHL playoffs to get to. The Ice and the Edmonton Oil Kings finally get it on tonight at the Ice Cave. Game 1 tonight, Game 2 tomorrow. And big 6'6" center Jack Finley of the Winnipeg Ice will join us on today's show. We're also going to talk some CFL. The Bombers are on the practice field today as training camp has resumed with the strike being taken care of. TSN football insider Dave Naylor is going to join us in a few minutes to break down the deal, what it means for the Canadian Football League, as well as take a look around the league heading into training camps. Well, it's Friday afternoon. You know what that means. The buffet is locked and loaded. Ken Wiebe, Wiebe's World himself, will pop by a little bit later on. And with the second leg of the Triple Crown, the Preakness on the weekend, we'll also have a quick visit from Kirt Contois later on in the program to fill us in on who should we should be jumping on at hpibet.com with a couple of picks for the Preakness before we do our own race, the marble race, to finish off another week here on Winnipeg Sports Talk. Hey, a big thank you to the sponsors that make this show happen each and every day. Our friends at Aikens Lake Wilderness Lodge, Wallace & Wallace, F Apparel, Vita Health, Culligan Water, Manitoba Battery, Royal Sports, Breezy Bend, Not AutoCorp, Little Brown Jug, Princess Auto, Boston Pizza, the Nick and Nicky DQ Group, Canadian Club Whiskey, Assiniboia Downs, and of course our betting partner over at Coolbet Canada. Speaking of Coolbet, Dustin Nielsen and I just finished the weekend edition of the Lock Shop. It's up right now on Twitter if you check out my feed. But make sure if you're listening on the podcast, wherever you get your podcast, pop in Lock Shop or the Lock Shop. Subscribe to that. New episodes Tuesday and Friday. And maybe more to come as we get through the summer into next year with a bit of a Lock Shop expansion. All right, let's get to it. Get Remis in here and get this Friday party started. What's going on?
Woo! Friday, right? We're ready.
Long weekend Friday.
Long weekend.
If it wasn't 3 degrees and raining or snowing in most places around here, I think people would be even more fired up. But that being said, I'll take the 3 days off. We got PGA Championship going on. We've got some great playoff action that we can watch down at the Ice Cave. And, of course, the Stanley Cup playoffs are delivering so far into round 2.
Man, I was watching last night, thought I was going to get some overtime, but Kucherov said no way with a beautiful one-touch pass. That's why you play. That's why they call it a full 60 pass. It's not a cliche. Not playing a 59 seconds. Behind the net, one-toucher. Ross Colton, those one-touch, I've tried those, like in my league. They make it look so easy in NHL. It's impossible to have that kind of hands to put it right on the stick. Incredible. So, yes, some great playoff hockey, but also we are on Trotz Watch here as well.
Always 24/7, 24/7 Trotz Watch here at WST. Do we have some news? We've got some reporting from Big J Journos on what is going on with the former Islanders head coach and the guy everyone in Winnipeg would like to see come home to take over the Jets.
Yes. Okay. Here is the update. So today was supposed to be the meeting between Barry Trotz and the Philadelphia Flyers. Kelly Moore tweeted out today as I pull up the tweet. Here it is. Barry Trotz may end up meeting with Philly, but I'm told by someone I trust implicitly it won't be happening today. As colleague John Shannon, NHL, mentions in his Friday commentary on CJOB, please don't spend a lot of your long weekend fixated on a Trotz watch.
Easy for you guys to say.
Yeah, come on, Kelly.
Easy for you guys to say. We're building a monument right now. We've got a 24-hour vigil happening in and around the Canada Life Center to bring Barry Trotz home. So while I'm joking, of course, but listen, this is the biggest story right now when it comes to the Winnipeg Jets, and it's not just the Winnipeg Jets that would be interested in the services of Barry Trotz. Let's get to the Kyprios report, though, Remo, because it gives you an idea about how many teams are interested in one of the most successful coaches in NHL history and the price tag it might cost to get Barry Trotz behind your respective bench.
Yeah, we've kind of speculated on price. We've referred to a Brinks truck, but how much money should be in that Brinks truck that's being backed up towards Barry Trotz? Nick Kyprios reporting, hearing as many as 6 to 7 NHL teams have reached out to Barry Trotz camp. Clubs under the impression the price tag could fall in the $6 million per range. It doesn't sound like a decision is imminent at this point. Great. Take as long as you need. We can keep putting out YouTube videos, speculating on it, getting excited for every little nugget. I am totally okay with that, as I think our YouTube views have doubled this month compared to last month. Thank you, Barry Trotz.
Well, and hey, listen, it is in some ways the gift that keeps on giving, because it is something that everyone's interested in. Everyone that's concerned and invested in the Winnipeg Jets would love to see happen, for the most part. I mean, I guess I'm exaggerating a little bit, but this is going to be. I was just thinking about this when you mentioned that number, Remo. I mean, what an amazing position Trotz is in. He gets fired from a position where he had 1 year left at $4 million. And will have his pick of a number of teams. We're basically talking about 20% of the league, reportedly, would love him to be the coach. And you get a 50% increase to $6 million, reportedly, from a $4 million. Like, Barry Trotz is going to end up being the big winner out of this. And that's not always the case when you get a pink slip from your employer.
It's almost like he had an opt-out or something in his contract. You see that with all these baseball guys. Oh, they opt out and they just get a better deal. So seemed to work out pretty good for him. 6 to 7 teams interested. And there might be one more team that we can add on to the list today, Hustler, who we did have a couple Kevin Weeks bombs.
The best. Weeks. Can I just quickly, before we mention it, Weeks's ascension into the insider game and the way that he continues to put out his content is the best thing that's happened in hockey Twitter and the hockey internet over the course of the last year. I get so excited when I hear that, what's going on, you NHL fans, because you know that it's going to be breaking news. And then, of course, the other thing is where he's doing his video from. Today, he broke the news of the Korpisalo extension for 1 year in Columbus from his bathroom with his shower running. No one does it like Kevin Weeks, the insider of the people.
Here, do you want to play it right now?
Yes, absolutely. I want to play every Kevin Weeks drop that he ever does. This is for the folks. If you're just listening on the podcast, you'll be able to hear the shower. If you're watching on YouTube, you get the full Kevin Weeks experience from his latest breaking news.
What's going on, you NHL fans? Hope you're doing well. Weeksy coming to you live here. Shower time. You hear it running in the back. Breaking news. Columbus Blue Jackets have re-signed goaltender Joonas Korpisalo to a 1 year extension. Again, the Blue Jackets have re-signed Korpisalo to a 1 year extension. Time to get in the shower.
Okay, we need to talk about this. He's like, all right, I got to do my breaking news video. Where can I go? I'm going to go in the shower. Oh, it's not as interesting if the shower is not on. Steaming hot water in there. Well, that might be the best one. That was well done.
They're getting better all the time. And the fact that he already has his own catchphrase. Like, I want a shirt that has Weeks on it that just says, what's going on, you NHL fans? That would be a bestseller. And maybe we should get out in front of it and do it ourselves. That could be our first one. The the Kevin Weeks dream guest. We're going to have to reach out and get Weeksy on at some point. Doing just such a great work as a broadcaster now and insider. And you know what? He's another guy, Remis, that it has been mentioned a number of times for potentially a future in the front office of an NHL team. Regardless, I want more Kevin Weeks, and there's few things that get me as excited on the internet than the line, "What's going on, you NHL fans?" Because you know Weeks is about to drop something.
Well, and going back to Trot's Watch, we had speculated on teams that would be interested 6 to 7. So let's try to think of the 6 to 7 teams Kyprios mentioned. What do we have? The Jets, Flyers, Vegas,
Detroit. Well, Dallas now with Rick Bowness being stepping away. Or I guess we didn't get to that.
We didn't get to that.
You NHL fans, breaking news.
I was going to intro this, and then Kevin Weeks, just before we got on, outside on the street. Here he is one more time.
What's going on, you NHL fans? Weeksy coming to you live here from Rutherford, New Jersey. Hope you're doing well. Breaking news. The Dallas Stars head coach, Rick Bowness, who's been behind the bench more than any coach in NHL history, over 2,500 games, will be stepping away immediately. And in addition to him, the assistant coaches will also not be returning to the Dallas Stars.
There you go. Another drop from Kevin Weeks on Dallas. And, this is interesting. I mean, I think Bowness did a great job. I mean, I didn't think Dallas was a playoff team. Mind you, I thought that they sort of took the Jets spot in the playoffs. So take that for what it's worth. But I mean, he had that run to the final. He really did do a great job since taking over. What was it, when Jim Montgomery basically, had to step away due to whatever was happening off the ice. But as he mentioned, I mean, this is a guy that has major ties to the Winnipeg Jets. Just an amazing career, but it does open up a big opportunity in Dallas for a prospective new head coach, with the assistants not coming back, and kind of weird after a playoff year where many would agree that the Dallas Stars maybe exceeded their expectations, that they're going to be having a brand new coaching staff. But Rick Bowness, I mean, an absolute just salt of the earth dude. As Kevin mentioned, over 2,500 games on NHL benches. No one has more experience. Time for Rick, I think, to maybe enjoy some time away from the rink going forward. So another opening, and certainly you'd think if you got an opening right now, you're at least making a call to Barry Trotz and seeing what he thinks about your team and the opportunity in your city.
For sure. And you mentioned 25 years. I mean, we can look at Rick Bowness's hockey DB right now, starting in 84, 85 with the Winnipeg Jets. And I don't know if I've ever seen a hockey DB that goes this long. That's pretty lengthy.
Never ends.
It's endless, as you said. So Phoenix, Islanders, Ottawa, Canucks, Lightning, Dallas. And they did have that surprise run to the finals. Joel Kiviranta, that's where he became a household name. And Anton Khudobin. I mean, Dallas, they beat the Jets in overtime over and over again this year. That's kind of what took them into the playoffs. And as you said, they stole the Jets spot. But maybe they could be a name as well who are interested. Although I never thought Dallas was that good, but they were in the playoffs and they took Calgary to 7 games. And now I think Jake Ottinger was a huge part of that. But I'm not sure what to make of Dallas for the future, although they do have a pretty solid top line with Hintz, Robertson, and Pavelski.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Rupee Hintz is an absolute stud, and Jason Robertson is going to be a star. What's weird is that, and you could make some comparisons to the Winnipeg Jets. I mean, for so long, it's been all about Seguin and Ben, and they've got, 9 and 9.5 of, so like, almost $19 million a year invested in those two guys, and they've been steadily on the decline over the last few years. But I mean, they've had other guys step up and become that top line. And Joe Pavelski, I mean, you want to talk about an ageless wonder. I mean, the way that he's performed since going to Dallas, probably making San Jose kicking themselves for letting a guy like that get away, even at the age that he is. But, it will be youth. They've got Heiskanen. We'll see what happens with John Klingberg. I think it's likely that he'll be elsewhere, signing a bigger money free agent deal than the Stars are able to give him. But listen, it's another opening. So that's 5 teams right now, Remis. 6 or 7. I had someone mention, what if Florida gets swept by the Tampa Bay Lightning? Do they come back with Andrew Brunette, or do they look to make a significant upgrade up to the level that they had in a guy like Joel Quenneville. Certainly Barry Trotz would be at the top of that list as well. So I think it's safe to say that every team that needs a coach, and maybe some that technically don't yet, are still given long thought and wouldn't mind having a conversation with Barry Trotz's representatives.
Yeah, it seems like everyone's kicking the tires. So Florida is an interesting one. Andrew Burnett's a guy who's been in the front office for a while in Florida, and he was with the Minnesota Wild, thrust behind the bench after Quenneville departed. Do they go with him next year? Or, yeah, you're right. Or do they go? I mean, Barry Trotz, Florida, nice weather, but another place without state income tax. So, I mean, you look, what is it, May? It's May 20 here in Winnipeg right now, Huss, and it's snowing. Who wouldn't want to come coach here?
That. Yeah.
Who wouldn't want to?
Just make sure the interviews are on location. Although when it comes to Barry Trotz, he knows very well what this province is about. He's one of us, and I think that's part of the reason why people think that maybe the Jets have a unique advantage. If it is an advantage at all, it is if Barry Trotz feels that, there's a special opportunity and something cool about coming back to potentially finish his time as a head coach, doing something special here in his home province. We'll talk about it with Ken Wiebe coming up a little bit later on. We did have 2 games last night in the league, and as we mentioned, Remo, Lightning up 2-0, 2 road wins against the Florida Panthers, and man, the defending champs seem to just be getting better coming out of that 7-game test against the Leafs in round number 1. And now the Panthers, the number 1 team all year in the East, are on the ropes, needing to win on the road just to get the series back to South Florida.
Yeah, what happened to this offense? We were going to see 1-1, Vasilevsky and Bob going toe-to-toe. Looked like we were headed to overtime. And as I mentioned before, Kucherov with a beautiful pass to Ross Colton, who's really made a name for himself the last couple of weeks. This Florida power play just hasn't been able to get going at all. Scoring for a team that scored, would put up so many goals during the year. They just haven't done that during these playoffs. And we said yesterday, I'm like, I don't know why Tampa would be an underdog. They're in the series. They're 2-time defending Stanley Cup champions. How can you bet against them? They got all the top players.
Even if it was closer to a pick'em or something, and I get Florida at home ice. I mean, I think we've seen that home ice only means so much in the Stanley Cup playoffs. And hey, I'll tell you what, you keep hanging plus 140 numbers on the Lightning, I'll keep betting it and hopefully keep cashing those tickets. The St. Louis Blues, though, Remis, right back in the series. And listen, they got it to overtime in game number 1, but they were outshot more than 2-1. I thought they were fortunate to even be in the game late, although they tied it up late to get it to overtime. But man, what a performance by St. Louis. David Perron, on his 3rd time around with the Blues, continues to make things happen. And as much as I can't stand the guy, Jordan Binnington is stepping up and playing like 2019 Jordan Binnington. We hadn't seen him very much in the last couple of years, but he is back, and Craig Berube's team made a statement that they aren't going anywhere quickly. They have taken home ice from the Avalanche and head back to St. Louis for the weekend with a 1-1 series tie.
Yeah, okay, before I get to that, I just need to say about Florida, I mentioned their power play. You know what their power play percentage is this year, Huss? In the playoffs?
In the regular season or the playoffs?
In the playoffs.
10%?
0 for 25. Lowest in the playoffs. I mean, can't get lower than 0. As far as that game, Jordan Binnington, here are some numbers. I thought Husso was the man in the regular season. Binnington was one of those guys, maybe like a Cam Ward, who has that, playoff performance, Stanley Cup winning rookie season, and then just can't seem to capture that magic. He was .901 save percentage in the regular season, .313 goals against. Here in the playoffs in 5 games, .948 save percentage and a .175 goals against. So, I mean, he's got to be good. He was pretty good in game 1 against Colorado, but they couldn't handle it in overtime. But yesterday, even better. And there they were scoring. And David Perron, I thought David Perron was done years ago when he was in Edmonton. But he's
total
solid
renaissance
player.
Renaissance of his career back again in St. Louis, the place where it started. He's left, he's gone back, he's left, he's gone back again. And Now they're back again in the second round of the playoffs and had the big upset last night of the Colorado Avalanche. We'll get to tonight's games a little bit later on. Rangers and Carolina, as well as round 2 of the Battle of Alberta. We'll do that on the Coolbet lines towards the end of the program. But I should quickly, we're going to get to Dave Naylor and get the breakdown on the new agreement from the CFL and the CFLPA and Dave's thoughts on the league now that it's all about football and not about boardrooms and negotiation. But before we do that, I do want to give a quick Breezy Bend PGA Championship leaderboard update. Of course, we do our golf reports all year long for our friends at Breezy Bend, one of Winnipeg's top private courses. If you're interested in finding out more about a long-term golfing home for you and your family, check them out at breezybend.ca or give the course a call and ask for our good friend Corey Johnson. Justin Thomas, back-to-back 67s. He was out there in the wind this morning. 3 under par, brilliant round. He is in the clubhouse with the lead at 6 under par. Now, Rory McIlroy, who was 5 under, and Will Zalatoris, who was 4 under, along with Tom Hoagie yesterday, all have afternoon tee times. We'll see whether this wind dies down at all, but it is definitely going to be a real challenge for the players out there this afternoon. Right now, the cut line is looking in and around +3, +4. So I'll give you an update on that a little bit later on the program, as far as and we'll also take a look at the Winnipeg Sports Talk DraftKings contest, but we'll do that right at the end of the program, maybe in and around when we're getting ready for the marble race. And if you haven't been around for the marble race before, all you need to do, hit that red subscribe button. You should do that anyways, and stick around at the end of the show. The highlight, the popular highlight, the end of the week is the marble race. We'll have some fun doing that before we all go our separate ways for the long weekend. All right, before we get to Dave Naylor, do want to thank our friends at Aikens Lake and congratulate them on welcoming guests back. It's been a real tough couple years for anyone in the hospitality industry, and when you are operating a 5-star fly-in fishing lodge with guests from around the world, it certainly impacted it, but they're ready for their busiest season ever. We cannot wait to get down there to really Manitoba paradise later on in the summer. And if you want to check out, there are some limited availabilities for a friends and family trip, a corporate outing. Find out more and check it out at aikenslake.com or hit our friend Pitt Turan up on Twitter at Aikens Lake. Wallace & Wallace, of course, are Winnipeg's fencing and overhead door specialists, serving residential and commercial customers in the PEG since 1946. If you need the security and protection of a new fence, or if winter's done a number on your old one, give them a call at 452-2700 for a free estimate. They've got it all: vinyl, ornamental, welded wire, chain link, or wood fences. And if it's time to replace your garage door, they've also got Winnipeg's largest selection of overhead garage doors. Visit them at their showroom on Lawson Road off Kenniston, or find out more online at wallacefences.com. Hey, I got to give a big congratulations to our friend Andrew Parks over at F Apparel. After being the proud father of 2 little girls, Andrew and his wife Lindsay just welcomed in a little boy to their growing family. So congratulations from all your friends at Winnipeg Sports Talk. I'm sure there'll be baptisms and other events for the Parks family. We've all got them well. You need a suit that fits and looks great, and F Apparel's got you covered. Custom suits starting for just $400, and a great deal for your wedding party if you need to get all the fellas suited up for a big event this summer or into the future. F Apparel, 190 Smith Street downtown, or online at that's EPHapparel.com. And heading into the weekend, maybe it's time to pop by our one of the 7 Vita Health Fresh Market locations for great prices on Winnipeg's best selection of natural and organic supplements, beauty products, and groceries. Not to mention delicious lunch options at their grab-and-go deli, including Vita Market salads, soups, sandwiches, and more. Make sure to try that falafel salad, especially tasty. And if you're planning a big barbecue, hopefully later on this weekend, maybe not tonight, check out their delicious lean bison steaks or chicken. And hey, if you can't make it into the store, visit their brand new fully shoppable website website to buy online or schedule a delivery with Instacart. 7 Winnipeg locations for Vita Health Fresh Market, including the newest store in Linden Ridge, and you can check them out online and shop at myvita.ca. All right, we will get to the buffet, talk Jets, Barry Trotz, Stanley Cup Playoffs, Ice Oil Kings with Ken Wiebe coming up in a few minutes. Jack Finley from the Ice is also going to drop by the program. But first up, let's get the latest on the Canadian Football League, the deal with the players and training camp in the upcoming season with TSN football insider Dave Naylor. What's up, Nails? How are you?
Hey, we won't be talking about negotiations unless this gets rejected, right? Like I look, and I don't think it's going to, but I'm not willing to, count this one across the goal line until it actually gets there. And like, there is some uncertainty in the water here about whether this is going to get approved by the players. So, look, I hope you're right. We're not talking about this for a while, but in this case, what is normally a formality, maybe a little more than that. So we'll see.
Well, that sounds like news to me because, to be perfectly honest, I think most of the early reactions to the deal was this was one. I mean, it was kudos to the CFLPA for sticking together and getting as good of a deal as we've seen in a long time. I mean, you've covered these negotiations for many years. What did you make of the back and forth between the two sides and where they ended up coming to?
Look, I think it's a very good deal for the players, and I think it's a very good deal for the Canadian Football League as a whole. And as I said before, allowing the players to make gains in several areas is not a loss for the CFL, because the reputation of how this league treats its players matters. And there's a business interest here. You're going to be recruiting players. You're in a competitive environment. You want players to say, yeah, in the CFL, you get treated well because you get this, and they do this, and this for you. So I've kept, and I'll be honest, I've kept my opinions on the process along the way to myself. Okay. I was reporting on this process. I think it's you got to be careful making opinions on proposals, because that's part of the process. What somebody proposes is not necessarily what they want. It's also often a bargaining ploy. And, because of my position in the league, I did not want to be influencing the opinions of players, good or bad, on the process. So I kept my opinions really completely out of it while the process was on. Now that it's arrived at and they have a memorandum of understanding that has been tentatively agreed to, I'm open to sharing my opinions. And I do think this is a very good deal for the players. I mean, they've never had an opportunity to get a portion of their contracts guaranteed. They get that. They've never had, the last 2 salary caps, I believe the prescribed increases were $50,000 a year. This is minimum 100. They haven't had revenue sharing. They got that. They got extended health and safety. When you go through every category, the needle moved in the direction of the players. And frankly, I didn't see that coming a year ago, with the CFL fresh off a year with no season, about to head into another season of partial, reduced crowds, increased costs because of COVID. I thought, my God, I would not want to be the Players Association negotiating with this group of owners next spring on a new CBA. So I'm really surprised that the owners didn't negotiate as like a group of people that were on their knees. The players stood strong, and there was a bit of a perfect storm, I think, to keep them resolved. I think they got a very good deal. And I'm like you. I when I first saw it, I never gave it any sense that this would have any danger of not being ratified by the players. But I would say, at least to this point, I still think it will. But I don't think it's the formality that it's been in many instances in the past. And I don't know whether that has to do with the issues or whether that has to do with just kind of the mood of standing up for themselves with the players. But, we'll find out soon enough.
Well, Dave, it's funny you mentioned you kept your opinions to yourself. I'm sure you had one when we heard the reports of the first offer from the league that was a 10-year deal with no increases to the salary cap. What was all that about? And how did they come from, certainly on the surface, what seemed like a ridiculous opening salvo from the league to a deal this week?
The only thing I would remind you of is we never saw any of the opening salvos from the players, right?
Good point.
It says that, ordinarily when the opening of bargaining happens, both sides put most ridiculous proposals out there that they know the other side is never going to accept, and therefore they get points just for taking it off the table, okay? Because the proposal from the league to the players went out in a memo to, hundreds and hundreds of players, that one ends up in the public's hands, okay? If the players made a proposal to the league and they share it among their 9 teams, and more specifically 9 governors or 9 presidents, not the whole organization, that one likely doesn't make it into the public's hands. So that's why I'm always a little bit cautious about scoffing or criticizing one side for a ridiculous opening proposal until we see the other side's opening proposal. We never saw it. Okay. So that's one thing. So I understand like kind of the strategy and why you do that. And I also understand even from the ratio perspective, right? Like their thing was basically no guaranteed starting spots for Canadians, right? That was, we're going to have Canadians on the roster, but they're going to have to earn their way onto the field. Now, I don't think that's a ridiculous principle to begin with. And I think it sort of signaled to the players that that's what we're looking for. We're looking for some measure where we're not trying to change the Canadians on the roster, the number of them on the roster, but we are looking to roll back the amount of guaranteed starting time they get. I think that's what that opening salvo said to me. And guess what we ended up with? Rolling back the guaranteed amount of starting time that they get. So I think it just always has to kind of be, viewed in the context of it. I think public relations wise, that was a bad look for the league. And I think the union knew that public relations wise, it was going to be a bad look for the league, which was why they were probably not upset that it got into the public hands.
Yeah, no, I think you're bang on that, Dave. TSN's football insider Dave Naylor with us discussing the CFL PA agreement and looking ahead to the season and to training camp. Just while we're on the ratio, fill us in on where they came to, how it's different, and when we'll see that actually take effect on the field.
Well, it doesn't happen until 2023, and this is the same thing in 2019 when they signed a deal. Anything that changed the nature of roster construction is a year away because teams need an offseason, obviously, to put that together. That's interesting because what was on the table on Saturday, when it was rejected by the players, was basically 6 and 1, right? So the ratio would be 6 true Canadians, 1 veteran American. At least that time it was 3 teams, 3 seasons with the same team, or 4 in the league. What they came out with is essentially 5.5. So the ratio actually got rolled back half from when it was rejected by the players on Saturday, because you've got now 7 Canadian starters, but up to 3 of those can lose 49% of up to 49% of their snaps to a veteran American. So what you've basically done is enhance the value of veteran Americans, slightly diminish the value of Canadians in general, and you're going to allow coaches more of their own decision-making of who plays on the field when, and they are going to be less dictated to by the ratio. I don't think fans are going to notice a tremendous amount of difference in the game that way. You're still going to have 7 Canadians on the field most of the time, but not all of the time. There are going to be times when there's only 4. So, that's a significant rollback, and how that factors in. A lot of bonuses are done based on playtime. A lot of Canadian players certainly, capitalized by having their playtime guaranteed to them. If you're a starter, that's no longer going to be the case. And look, I'd say that's kind of what I said earlier. I'm not deeply offended as a Canadian or as a fan of Canadian football that the league is going to require Canadian players to earn their place on the field a little more than has been in the past. That does not feel like an abomination to me. And I think when we recognize that American players, let's talk about some of the dynamics that happen in this league. American players who are stars, in some cases, making less than Canadian backups. That's because of the ratio. So I think what they're trying to do is balance that a little more and say, hey, this is the Canadian Football League, but half the membership of this league is American. And now, of course, half the leadership of the union is American, because Solly Elamimian is the president of the union and Brian Ramsey is the executive director. And I'm not saying that because Brian's a Canadian, he thinks always in Canadian issues, and Solly, because he's an American, he only sees things from an American player's perspective. But I do think it's good to have that representation of both sides at the top of the union. And so ultimately, this, at least on the ratio side, is a more favorable deal for American players than it is for Canadians. I still think Canadians have a more favorable situation in the league, but it moved the needle in the direction of the American players. And as I say, more significantly than what was rejected by the players on Saturday. So it looks like the players union was willing to sacrifice, another half of the ratio for 2 reasons. One, they can still claim their 7 Canadian starters, and I think that was important to them. And 2, they got improvements in a number of other areas from where things sat on Saturday.
Dave, I have to ask you this. I mean, listen, I watch all these games and go to the games. I'm never paying attention or counting the Canadians on the field or how many snaps.
You are no one. No one is.
So what are the logistics in managing this? Like, How do we know who's had 49% of the snaps goes in? I mean, I can't even wrap my head around how that is logged and how you keep track of all of that.
Well, look, it is disappointing to me that this is going to be as complicated as it is, because as a journalist, it's very difficult to talk about. Like, even with the veteran American thing last year, I hated talking about that on our hits for TSN and TSN.ca, and I would avoid it as much as possible because no one knew what I was talking about. Right? So now, can you imagine 49% like veteran Americans, 3 years, 5 years in the league, 3 with the same? It's impossible to explain to the average fan, and that part of it I do not like. The application of it and how it's actually going to what it's going to result in, I'm better with. But I don't know how they're going to do that. And Farhan Lalji and I have kind of stopped tweeting about how this is going to be administered because we're getting contradictory information from sides that swear they're right. You know what I mean? And it's so early days. We're just going to let the dust settle on this one a bit because they got a year to figure it out. Farhan's information is that it's going to be in game. You can't have a guy play more than 49% of those snaps in game. My information is it may be in segments of games, 3-game segments, 4-game segments. It certainly won't be for a whole season because they don't want coaches hoarding American player snaps for the final 4 games of the regular season. And you see all the Canadians take a bench when the games, are the most important games of the year or anything. I think it may, so it's either, but to tell you, I understand and can explain to you how this is going to be done. No, I don't even know what method they're going to use because I say Farhan and I just kept going back and forth, and it was just like, okay, well, my sources are doubling down. Well, my sources are doubling down. Okay, let's let this one just sit, and I'm sure in a few days it'll come out. I'm being very transparent with you about the reporting on this one, but occasionally we get information that contradicts, and when that happens and both sides insist they're right and there's no real way to resolve it, we just kind of take a knee in the end zone for a few days, I guess, on this one.
I mean, I totally get it. And I guess just the more I think about this, I mean, is every league or every team, every building going to have a guy, you have capologists with each team, some guy that's just literally counting the players and making the next, Canadian, each snap, because it is going to be impactful.
The only thing I can say to you is that I believe there is some accounting of this already because there are players' bonus clauses that are based on the number of snaps they play in a season. So there has to be some way to administer this. I already think even with the 7 starting Canadians, it's amazing that, that they can keep track when, you've got guys running on and off the field after every play. You've got wholesale changes after every possession. The fact that doesn't become an issue more often. I honestly could count on one hand the number of times like covering the CFL for as long as I have that, hey, so-and-so played with an improper ratio has actually come up. That doesn't mean it doesn't happen more often than we ever know, but it's, for something that's as fundamental to the league as it is, we hardly ever hear about it. Hey, Hustler, I can stay with you, but I'm going to have to put my phone down on its charger or we're going to lose some battery power. So my voice will stay with you. My face is going to go away, which is probably a good thing for all your viewers. So here we go.
No problem. Hit that up. And remember, if you want to change that, we're with Dave Naylor, TSN Football Insider. So Dave, we've got the deal. I guess just one more on the deal.
Yeah.
You mentioned, I mean, this is big for the Canadian Football League. It's big for the players. How much of it does seem like there's some pretty significant give backs from the league. We've always heard how cash poor the league has been. Can they afford this? And assuming that they can, how much of a positive is that we won't be talking about this for a minimum of 5 years till the TSN deal's up?
I think everything that leagues, when they're dealing with sponsors or partners or talking about expansion or stadium construction or anything, okay, and I'm not talking, this is not exclusive to the CFL. One of the things they want to be able to say to whoever they're dealing with, whatever stakeholder it is, and say, oh, and by the way, we have 5 years, 7 years of labor peace. You're not going to be interrupted by that. We know our costs. We know we're not going to miss the start of a season or miss a season. Labor is not an issue. You don't have to worry about it. Okay. That's why leagues want long terms on these deals, besides the fact of how the CFL having done a negotiation in 19, 20, 21, and 22 because of the pandemic and the need to redo aspects of the CBA on that. So those are the two reasons. And I think it's very good for it. Now, can they afford it? Like I said, the CFL has a very, very wealthy group of owners among its 6 private owners. They didn't get wealthy because of their CFL teams, okay? But that doesn't mean that they can't reach into their personal wealth to fund these teams, although that's not necessarily a great business model. As I've said many times, philanthropy is not a great business model because when owners get tired of subsidizing their teams, there's not always somebody standing behind them saying, oh, whoa, my turn. I want to burn, $1 million or $2 million a year to keep a team in the CFL going. So, that's why when I see fans, they think, why don't they just raise the cap to $8 million? Or why don't they make the minimum salary $100,000? Because you deepen your losses. Eventually you get tired of doing it. And if you create an unsustainable business, there's no one to take over for you. That's why that doesn't happen. So it is important that while the players get some gains, that the league still has a viable business model, because ultimately you need people that want to own your teams and invest in them and see the future. The $100,000 up a year on the cap, is, I think, again, all you can really do is compare a CBA. You can't compare it to baseball CBA or the NFL CBA or anybody else. All you can really do is compare it to previous CBAs. And when you put this CBA, put it past next to the one from 2019, that one had $50,000 increases in the salary cap and no revenue sharing. This one has $100,000 increases in the salary cap and revenue sharing. You can debate about whether revenue sharing is going to be meaningful or not. I don't have the background to be able to tell you. Really, I think that's part of the disagreement and the mistrust is this actually going to net us anything, or is this just a bunch of numbers on paper? The league says if we're prosperous, the players will share in it. The only way to know for sure is to let the deal play out, and that's what we're about to do, hopefully.
Dave, before we go, let's talk about the actual 3-down game. Now the Camps are back. Are the Bombers the team to beat still in your mind? And what are the biggest training camp stories outside of Winnipeg that you're paying attention to this for the next few weeks?
Yeah, I think they have to be. I think given the way they're back-to-back Grey Cup champions, the way they won last year, dominating basically everybody until the playoffs, and the fact that they've managed to keep most of their core together. They didn't do much in free agency other than Greg Ellingson, but that's not a bad pickup as it is. And, we understand why there aren't a bunch of great new additions in Winnipeg. A, they have no money. B, they aren't looking to change things up. But I'm at Argos camp today. I'm just speaking to you from the parking lot at the University of Guelph. And, you look at that team and you see, there's Andrew Harris, and there's Speedy Banks. And, they've brought in some guys. They have very good defensive line last year. And they brought in some other guys, to add to that. There's a number of vets here that have pretty impressive NFL resumes. And we know sometimes that turns into a great player. And sometimes that turns into a guy who gets cut by Thursday, depending on, what kind of shape mentally and physically they show up in. But that's, I think people forget the Argonauts were a first place team last year. And, they've really, I think they're a team to watch. Hamilton having gone to back-to-back Grey Cups, and now Dane Evans getting full control of that team. I describe Ottawa as a team that looks like it was put together from the most favorable expansion draft in the history of sports. I mean, it's like an expansion team, except everybody's good. They should be good. I think again, the East is going to be strong. This looks to me like the strongest year in the East that I've seen for a long time. The teams that I have the real question marks about, I guess I would say, Edmonton and BC. Edmonton, just because the quarterback situation is not settled. Anytime you go into a training camp and you don't know who your starting quarterback is going to be, I think that's a major kind of minus for a team, just in terms of, its evolution, its identity, those kind of things. Doesn't mean they can't be great partway through the season, but history would tell you that when a CFL team goes to camp and doesn't know who its quarterback is going to be, that's a red flag for, that they've got that. Basically, you look at that team and you judge them differently until they do get that settled. And the other one is BC. And I'm not trying to be anti-Canadian here at all, but let's just go on experience. They're going to start a quarterback, Nathan Rourke. He's got 2 starts on his resume. And I cannot think of another quarterback of any nationality who has ever anointed a starting quarterback of a CFL team with 2 starts based on his resume. Okay. The backup to him, if it's Michael O'Connor, has no starts on his resume. If it's Isaac Harker, he's got 2, I think. So like your quarterback depth chart, is going to be starting Canadian quarterback and potentially a backup Canadian quarterback. But if Nathan Rourke is the quarterback of that team, I cannot think of many instances where a CFL team has anointed a guy their starter based on 2 starts. I have not think of many opportunities where they would back up a player who has back him up with a player who has no starts, Michael O'Connor, or Isaac Harker, who has 2. Again, take nationality out of it. Take all the intangibles that Nathan Rourke demonstrates every day he goes to practice. I'm not debating any of that. I hope he's great. I think he has a chance to be a really successful quarterback. But opening a CFL season with that degree of experience among your quarterbacks, I have never seen before. So when I haven't seen something before, I'm always wait till we see it proven. And that's where I am on the BC Lions.
And they spent a lot of money on weapons, but now it's time for the quarterbacks to get it done. Hey, very quickly on the way out, if you had to put a nickel on who is behind center game number 1 for Chris Jones in Edmonton, who gets the start?
I mean, I think it might be Nick Arbuckle because he's still there and he has the most experience, and I think if it's close, generally you will go with the guy who has the most experience and then challenge him to compete to keep his job. So that's what I think. Again, I wouldn't guess right now if I didn't have to, but since you asked me to, that would be my guess. But it's not very often we've seen this type of situation where they've basically said, and look, let's be honest about this. Nick Arbuckle is a re-signing held over from Brock Sunderland. Even though Chris Jones had to redo the contract and give him a $100,000 bonus in January, that was because of a promise made to Nick Arbuckle from the previous administration because there was a lack of clarity about whether the league was going to allow signing bonuses. If the league was going to allow signing bonuses, the Elks made a promise that they would redo his deal in January with a signing bonus. Turns out the league did allow signing bonuses. The Elks made good on their promise. Nick Arbuckle has an opportunity in Edmonton, but he's going to have to earn it.
Nails, I cannot wait to get going. We got to wait a little longer for the preseason to start, but we will have a football game here a week today at IG Field, and then kickoff about 3 weeks away. Looking forward to talking to you all season long. Keep up the great work at TSN. Say hi to Farhan, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, man. See you later.
All right, great stuff with our guy Nails. Cannot wait for Canadian Football League kickoff, and of course a week today. Bombers, Elks, preseason action over at IG Field. I just got a note from my folks who are heading out to the lake on the weekend. Smart, getting ready for the entire summer. Big order from our friends at Culligan Water. So they've got the good stuff for the entire summer. My dad says it makes the best ice. Longtime customers, and I know Remis as well. And Ken Wiebe is getting the draining the Culligan tanks as we speak, getting ready for both the buffet and a visit with us here on Winnipeg Sports Talk. Of course, whatever your water needs are, Culligan's got you covered. They've been the go-to folks in the water game for over 65 years here in Winnipeg. Give them a call at 1200 Sargent Avenue, 694-5180, or drinkculligan.com for all of your water needs. Hey, this might be a good weekend to take care of some of those projects, or maybe just preparation for what we hope we'd be doing this weekend, and that'd be kind of really enjoying the spring into the summer. Bottom line is you're going to need batteries for all the toys this summer, whether you're working on a hot rod, you got a golf cart, a boat, whatever it is. Manitoba Batteries got you covered. You'll shop local. You'll save money over Costco and the Canadian Tire and the big box stores. And you'll save time as well, and maybe gas when you don't have to go all the way to Costco, because they'll deliver it to you as well. Give them a call, 783-8787. Let them know what you're looking for. You can certainly come by and pick it up. They'll have it ready for you with their extended spring and summer hours up until 8 p.m. Or find out more online at manitobabattery.com for all of your battery needs. And, of course, they're over at 1026 Logan Avenue. And big weekend, great time to pop over and see our friends at Royal Sports for whatever you need. They've always been the go-to guys as the biggest hockey superstore in the city. But now with soccer, baseball, softball starting, Royal Sports is your headquarters for the best and newest equipment for all of those sports. They've got a new expanded fitness section as well. And for those of you thinking about a new whip, not a car, a bike, Royal Sports is big bike selection continues to grow by the week. Pop down and see him at 750 Pembina Highway, and while you're there, check out the best selection of licensed merchandise around as well. 750 Pembina Highway. Follow him on Instagram at Royal Sports Pembina for the latest merchandise drops and sale information. All right, we've got lots to get to with Kenny Wiebe. We will get the latest update on Barry Trotz's watch. We'll talk some Stanley Cup playoffs, and we'll also talk a little Winnipeg Ice and Edmonton Oil Kings. And for those of you fired up for the series and the 2 games this weekend, Jack Finley joining us a little bit later on. And don't forget, Kenny and Rennie live 5 p.m. setting up round 3, the collision course between the Ice and the Oil Kings. We'll get to all of that, and we welcome in Wiebe's World himself. Kenny, what's going on? Drink up.
Hustler, no title belt for the reclaiming of the golf media division, but this is better than a belt right here. Winnipeg Sports Talk hoodie. Figured it was time to get that represented here with the show. Great to be with you. How's your Friday so far?
You're looking great, like $1 million US tax-free, especially in that hoodie. And yes, congratulations on reclaiming the belt. It was a short time in the possession of Billick, but you're once again on top of the mountain, as Mike McIntyre disclosed to us with the big win earlier this week. Listen, there's a lot I want to get to with you, and I do want to get your thoughts on the Ice ahead of your show, getting ready for round 3 a little later on, as well as the playoffs. I know you're covering that Abs Blues series for Sportsnet and Sportsnet.ca. But let's get to Trotz Watch right away. We're hearing a number. It was interesting. First it was described as an interview, then it was described by Darren Dreger as something a little more informal, but the bottom line is Kevin Cheveldayoff was not talking about making tea times with Barry Trotz. It was about a very important opening here with the Winnipeg Jets. And then we thought that he was meeting with Philly today. That didn't happen, but as we've heard Nick Kypreos saying, that there could be upwards of 6 teams that are interested in Barry Trotz's service. Listen, I know you've been on this. You've been working the phones all week. Where are things at right now, and what are you hearing in particular about the Jets' chances of bringing Barry Trotz home?
Yeah, Huss, obviously everyone is watching intently this here. Obviously, you mentioned the 2 reports from the week. Darren talking on the roundtable there about the meeting which took place in Nashville with Barry Trotz and Kevin Cheveldayoff. Obviously, it's important that the Jets are able to get him to the table, Huss. I think that is something that, especially when we had heard that the potential for Barry Trotz to be looking at a potential management position or transition to management at some point. Let's just put it this way. Barry Trotz isn't just taking interviews for the sake of taking interviews. And if he wasn't interested in the Winnipeg Jets opening, even though obviously we know there was an element of Trotz interviewing the Jets and trying to find out what he would like to hear about their vision, the fact that he got to the table was important. Will that potential $6 million price tag scare the Jets away? I don't think so. I mean, obviously that's a big number for whether it's a player or a coach. But you and I have discussed this before. This is an investment in the brand at a critical time for the organization. I don't think they'd be scared away from that number, even though we know it's a very large number. But to me, obviously, there will be other teams that are probably willing to go to that number as well. So, I mean, we knew from the very beginning there's going to be competition for Barry Trotz's services. But the fact that the Jets got him to the table, I think, was an important first step. And the fact that the Jets didn't lock this down in one meeting with, as Darren pointed out, pushing the envelope across the table, that should surprise no one. I mean, Gerard Gallant is a great example. Someone else pointed out on Twitter today, Gerard didn't just take the first interview and sign the contract immediately. He met with a couple other teams. This is standard operating procedure. Because Huss, even if the Jets are at the top of Barry's list, he's doing his due diligence. All of a sudden, he may find out something about another organization that piques his interest. But to me, when we look at the roster the Jets have and the issues that they need to clean up in terms of accountability and structure, Barry Trotz is still at the top of the Winnipeg Jets list, no matter what the price tag is. He has been at the top of the list from the beginning. That's not to say there aren't other quality candidates out there. And there are. There are plenty of great candidates out there. But where this goes in the next little bit, I mean, I think it's probably going to be at least a week before Barry decides. And the other thing people should know also, the fact that Barry's not meeting with Philadelphia today, I don't think is a notch against them either. I think Jeff Merrick, my colleague on his show this morning, also was reporting that meeting is still expected to happen. It's just not happening today. So there'll be other meetings scheduled, and then we'll kind of get a sense of, from the very beginning, Huss, this is what we know. Barry Trotz is going to coach where Barry Trotz wants to coach. So that still could potentially include Winnipeg, I think, even after all of the developments over the last week here.
Kipper mentioned there could be 6 to 7 teams in the mix. I mean, we were just sort of speculating.
Sure.
You got Winnipeg, you've got Philadelphia, Vegas has a new opening, you got the Detroit Red Wings. I don't think Montreal's really there. I assume that Marty St. Louis is coming back. I mean, and now I guess with the opening in Dallas, I'm sure would be picking up the phone to Barry Trotz. Is there a team or two that we're not mentioning that, maybe has a coach right now, or you think that could be lurking in the weeds?
Sure, and I think I have to give props to Stephen Wino. He was kind of first on the Florida Panthers train, and that's not a knock on Andrew Burnett, who I think has done an excellent job with the Florida Panthers under incredibly tough circumstances. But if you're the Florida Panthers and perhaps you get bounced or even swept by the Tampa Bay Lightning, suddenly Barry Trotz's availability may force management and ownership to take a look at Barry Trotz there as well. So that's the other part. I think that the other teams, Barry's going to be patient because not all the carousel's not done spinning yet, Huss, is maybe how I would describe it. We know that Sheldon Keefe got an endorsement from Brendan Shanahan and Kyle Dubas. But Florida, and let's not kid ourselves, Florida could come back and win the series, and then maybe this discussion isn't happening. But I would say Florida is probably one of those situations that are probably, up in the air, perhaps.
From a Jets perspective, and I think they would probably wait as long as it takes if they thought that they were going to get Barry Trotz. But ideally, how soon would they like to have their head coach? And how important is it, considering the huge organizational decisions that you'd probably like to have your new head coach on board with that need to be made?
For sure, Huss. So would the Jets like to have this done in June? Absolutely. But to me, they need to have it done, middle of June, first week of July, kind of at the latest before the draft. And that's not to say the coach is influencing the draft, but the coach is going to influence free agency specifically, and the trades that lead up to the week of the draft probably as well. So, would they like to have it earlier in June? For sure. But to me, as long as it's happening by the middle of June, there's still almost a month to get your structure together in terms of what your plan or vision for free agency and potential trades would be. And as we've talked about before, I mean, if Barry Trotz or whoever takes the job gets the job, there are going to be meetings with a couple of critical pieces on this current roster that need to be held as well before you maybe have that vision cemented in terms of what the Jets would want to do either in free agency or trade.
Well, I assume you're speaking about a guy like Mark Scheifele. Do you actually think that would happen? Or I'm so torn on this. I mean, my opinion on this has been pretty clear. We've talked about it for the last 6 months and sort of, where the organization is, the value of Scheifele right now, what a move would make. But let's just say that Barry Trotz is the coach. Do you think that he does sit down? I mean, do they make another crack at trying to see if they can maybe salvage this with Scheifele before they go to make a move? Or you sort of on where Darren Dreger was saying that, last week, that he doesn't see a scenario where Scheifele's on the Winnipeg Jets next year. Where are you right now?
Yeah, I'll say, I think I'm still in the same position I've always been. I think it's probably unlikely that Mark Scheifele is back with the Winnipeg Jets, but it's not to say that the Jets and Mark Scheifele have reached the point of no return. And
stranger things have happened. I'll say that.
Well, I mean, the other thing too is you don't know how Mark's the only one who knows how Mark feels about who the next coach is going to be, whoever it's going to be, and whenever it's announced.
Do you think that matters to Jets management?
I think it matters to a degree for sure. This has been essentially Mark and Blake Wheeler have been the face of the franchise since 2011. So those opinions still count. Do I think that it's still likely that a divorce is coming? Yes, but that's the other part about the meeting, between Trotz and Cheveldayoff. I mean, we know that had to be a conversation that was brought up, right? I mean, well, how does Barry feel about potentially coaching Mark? And the one kind of curveball to the whole scenario that some people may forget, and it may not have anything to do with it whatsoever, but Barry took over from Adam Oates in Washington. I mean, is there, we know that Adam Oates has the ear of Mark Scheifele. I mean, how does Adam feel about that? And how does Mark feel about that? I mean, those are all things that are, kind of ancillary parts of the equation. I don't think they're the front burner issues by any stretch of the imagination, but I think they probably reached the point where both sides would benefit from a change of scenery. There's all kinds of other options. I mean, we know that there's tons of talk out of Toronto about, well, now what, Kyle didn't mention the core four this time. Would Mark Scheifele be in play there? I mean, and colleague Elliot Friedman talked about, maybe the Leafs need to consider moving Tavares onto the wing, but maybe still take faceoffs. I mean, could you see Mark Scheifele playing on a line with John Tavares? I mean, could you see him playing on a line with Austin Matthews like he did at the World Cup for Team North America? I mean, the Leafs they have a lot of offense, but I mean, maybe that's a situation that, would have some appeal to Mark as well. I mean, but we know he was a Red Wings fan growing up, not a Leafs fan, even though he's from Ontario. But a lot of people would, make the joke saying, what's better than beating the Leafs? Well, how about joining the Leafs in a trade? But I mean, there's going to be, like we said, I mean, there's a lot of twists and turns to come. I mean, New York Rangers, I think, played well for the first two periods against Carolina. But I mean, if they lose in round two and Ryan Strome doesn't re-sign and maybe Andrew Kopp goes elsewhere, I mean, the New York Rangers are a team that we know has had some interest in Mark Scheifele before, and they might have actually even tried to pick him up at the deadline, I think. But there's going to be a lot of twists and turns to come, and that's the one thing that we know. The thing that's rough about either covering a team or those people that are in Jets Nation, 5 months between games is an awfully long time. So, and it's also natural for those people, especially seeing how the Jet season kind of went off the rails. They want answers yesterday, not tomorrow, right? So I think that's the perspective in terms of timing. I think we need to keep that got to remember it's still May. There's still 2.5 rounds of playoffs to be played. But I do think there will be interesting decisions to come, and they'll be coming sooner than later, but I don't think they're imminent on any of those fronts, to be honest.
Yeah, just as far as Scheifele and a potential deal and the return, and we've talked about this before. I mean, if you're Kevin Cheveldayoff, what you're looking to get back. I do wonder if, in your opinion, that it changes at all depending on who the next head coach is, and specifically Barry Trotz. I mean, he has a track record of playing a certain style with a certain kind of player that, you would think, if you knew that Barry Trotz, for instance, was going to be your head coach, I would think that would play into what you're looking at coming back. And I'm just interested in your thoughts on, right now, whether that's changed at all as far as, I mean, this team's not looking to blow it up. They want to be competitive next year, but the return for a Mark Scheifele and the kind of team and package that comes back, how that would relate to whoever the new bench boss is in Winnipeg.
Yeah, I mean, it's related to a degree, Huss, but I think it's more related to the team and the team needs. I mean, we've talked about this before. The Jets are looking for someone in a similar position as them, right? Someone who is looking to change their culture, maybe change the leadership group, but needs offense, right? But not a lot of the teams that are knocking on the door are willing to trade a core piece back unless they're rebuilding, right? And you're not getting Mark Scheifele for a rebuild because you only have the 2 years of his contract available. So to me, Boston's another team now too, with them getting bounced. I mean, if Bergeron's not back, does Mark Scheifele make sense there? And then now do we go back to maybe Jake DeBrusk is back on the table? Sure, the Bruins praised Jake DeBrusk for how he handled his situation, but he hasn't rescinded his trade request, right? So could Scheifele fit on a line with Taylor Hall? Absolutely. Now you have Pasta and Marchand with somebody else. I mean, or maybe you have Scheifele with them. I mean, there's lots of teams that are just going through the wreckage, if you will, Huss. I mean, a team like Dallas doesn't score nearly enough. They're a one-line hockey team, but is there a fit where the pieces coming back would work? That I don't know. But what I know is that the Jets will probably be looking for a combination of, they want present assets, but they wouldn't mind a future asset, but not a future asset for 5 years down the road. They need someone that's kind of on the verge of being ready to play now. And they also could be looking at it in terms of the larger deal house. We've talked about this for weeks as well. The Jets need to change the composition of the back end. So maybe if you're trading Mark Scheifele, maybe that team has to take one of the defensemen that have a larger scale contract in order to make it work for the Jets to clear out the space required. And I don't mean cap space, I mean space required. The other part too, I mean, is there appeal of trading one of the, we talked about the 5 Jets defense prospects. There's not room for all of them. Maybe one of them is included in the deal. I'm not saying the high end guys, but the second tier guys who are also close. I mean, you talked about it with guys who follow the Moose a lot more closely. I mean, Leon Gavanka is a guy we almost never talk about, but he had an unreal playoff and he had another great season, and now he's at the World Championship. I mean, if there's not room for the Jets for Gavanka, right shot D are in demand, right? So, he could be a guy that's, under consideration. And maybe Declan Chisholm could be in that same boat where he's either going to be pushing for a spot. But the thing with Chisholm is he's not, he's still waivers exempt, whereas Gavanka, I think, is no longer exempt from waivers. So a lot of things on the go. But I don't think the Jets aren't going to just give away Mark Scheifele, nor are they going to demand a king's ransom if they want to move him. They're going to try to do the best they possibly can. But the Jets are clearly going in for a retool and not a rebuild. And I've seen all kinds of suggestions about, this and that, and, Jets should be tanking. The Jets are not going to be, and anyone who thinks the Jets are tanking, stop thinking the Jets will be tanking. After a year of 0 sellouts, the Jets are not going to say, hey, you know what we'd really love for you to do, fan base? Be more patient. Let's wait. Let's see if something might happen in 3 or 4 years from now. That's not happening. That's a straight up wake up situation, Huss. There is no way that is happening here. Under any circumstances, doesn't matter who's coaching, it doesn't matter who's traded. The Jets are not suddenly going to reverse course and trade all the players that they thought the window was being built with to begin with. They may be moving 1 or 2 of those players. They're not moving all 3, nor are they, going to say, it's not looking great right now on the Pierre-Luc Dubois front. So, you know what? How about wholesale changes for everybody? See you in 5 years. I mean, there is no chance of that happening. 0, not 1, not 0.1, 0% chance.
Yeah, good. I'd rather not be talking about the lottery simulator at this point next season. Hopefully,
or in October. You don't want to be talking about the simulator in October?
No, definitely not.
How many more losses till the Jets can potentially get the ping pong balls to get Connor Bedard? Come on now. Let's go.
Hey, just before we move on from this, we had an interesting conversation with Dennis Bernstein yesterday in LA. And the Kings are a team, when we're talking about Mark Scheifele, that I think that there would be a fit. Now, listen, I haven't seen enough of Quinton Byfield. I mean, I know that he was, a number 2 overall pick. He plays center. He's a big body in the middle. Certainly not, anywhere close to the production of Scheifele at this point. But he would be an interesting name. But I guess just your thoughts on a potential fit in LA. And the fact of the matter is, if I'm the Kings and I bring a guy in to play for a couple years because it's LA, I probably have more confidence that we might be able to keep that guy around beyond those 2 years than maybe some other spots in the National Hockey League. What do you think about a potential fit in the crypto.com arena for 55? And what, when you look at the Kings roster, what interests you about a potential return?
Yeah, it's certainly interesting. I mean, whenever we talk about Mark Scheifele, naturally the conversation leads to statues, and we know there's a bunch of nice statues outside of crypto.com arena.
Statues, come on.
Magic and Kareem, and the great one specifically. But there's some interest to me, Huss. If we're talking about the California teams, I think that in a lot of ways Anaheim might make more sense, with a Mason McTavish or someone like that. But it all depends on the direction. Like, the talk in Anaheim is John Gibson going to be part of the, things going forward? I mean, there've been some talk on that front. In terms of LA, super interesting because of 2 things. They have some really interesting pieces on the back end who really kind of emerged this year, Huss, because Drew Doughty was out for so long and because Waugh was out, and even Mikey Anderson missed some time. So there would be some interest. Byfield is a super intriguing prospect. Is he far enough along that the Jets would feel comfortable with him as the number 2 center? I mean, or maybe now we're back to talking about Paul Stastny. Maybe Paul Stastny's back for 1 more year on a bridge kind of scenario in order to kind of lay the groundwork for Byfield eventually taking over, or Perfetti if they move him back from the wing to center. Could I see a fit? For sure. It would be incredibly intriguing because Todd McClellan delivers many of the same principles, Huss, as Barry Trotz in terms of accountability and structure. So is Mark on board with accountability and structure? That's another big thing as well. I mean, we know the Kings are a good team. We know that, part of the reason that Mark, maybe his situation didn't become as desirable as he once thought it was going to be was because he wants to be in a big market and have more opportunities for endorsements as well. So, I mean, would the glitz and glamour of LA appeal to Mark Scheifele? Probably. Much like the Rangers when I mentioned. I mean, those two cities would be fascinating for him to watch, to see where he fits in and to see how he would fare underneath that structure of a Gerard Gallant or a Todd McClellan. So, it's super interesting on a lot of fronts, Huss. I mean, that's a long-winded way at the buffet of saying I would say that the Kings would be on the list. Carolina could be on the list. Vinny Trocheck is a UFA, I believe. Mark's contract would be appealing to Carolina, a team that doesn't want to pay anybody really $10 or $11 million, but they're a team that sometimes doesn't have as much offense being contributed when it counts. And man, even though they rallied nicely against the Rangers, they're looking at potentially, even if they win the series, you're looking at Tampa or Florida. I mean, Carolina's been a team that's been knocking on the door here, Huss, but they haven't been able to kick it down. So, I mean, maybe there's some appeal. Maybe they think, let's not forget the Rod Brind'Amour connection, right? I mean, Paul Maurice had Rod Brind'Amour on his staff as an assistant. So we know how much Paul Maurice valued Mark Scheifele during his time here. I mean, getting the buy-in from Rod Brind'Amour, that could be a factor as well. And I think that there'd be some appeal to that situation for him as well.
It's fascinating that you mentioned that. I mean, for the longest time, I would agree. I do wonder with the way and the circumstances that Maurice left,
sure,
if he still feels the same way about key players and particularly Mark. I have no idea, but it is interesting something to talk about. Anyways, we could chop. Sorry, go ahead if you want.
Just a quick one. What I mean, I think that I don't think it was as smooth sailing at the end as it was at the beginning, or in the middle when they sort of took the mantle. Yeah, I do say, but and that's the other part too. Sort of, the other thing people are naturally thinking about too. Well, what about Pete DeBoer? Well, I mean, Paul and Pete are best friends. I mean, does that make it more appealing for Pete DeBoer or less appealing if Mark Scheifele is here, right? I mean, we know those two guys are talking fairly regularly. So that's another layer of intrigue depending on how the coaching search goes. And there's going to be other candidates. I mean, Rick Tocchet is going to be out there. I mean, Rick's a great candidate. There's kind of under the radar candidates everywhere, whether it's a Nate Lehman or, there's all kinds of people that, Derek Lalonde is on this Lightning staff. He's generating a lot of buzz. I mean, and Travis Green, I think, is someone I mentioned before. Like Travis is in an interesting spot. Like much like a lot of head coaches, Travis Green's going to be better in his next job, no matter which team he's coaching. I mean, whether that's Vegas or someone else that comes onto the radar. I mean, and, it'll just be interesting to see where a lot of these guys land. But we say this every year, Huss. There's more coaches available than chairs available in this game of musical chairs. So, how patient are guys going to be? Now we know Rick Bowness is out officially in Dallas. He's got a couple assistants on his staff that are intriguing, whether that's, Todd Nelson, John Stevens, or even Manitoban Derek Laxdal. I haven't seen what his status was, but, he's a guy who had great success in the American League with the Texas Stars. And I know he coached Rope Hintz and a lot of those guys going up. So
don't mention any of those guys' names to me until we find out what happens with Barry Trotz. Then we'll have that conversation.
Sorry, I wasn't trying to go into the plan B, but people are asking, right? So I mean,
for sure.
And Pascal Vincent. I mean, for all the people saying, oh, well, the whole new voice and he was on Maurice's staff. I mean, he's also 6 years removed from Paul Maurice's staff, 5 years running his own team and 1 year as an associate where he nearly got the head job. So there's lots of intrigue to come. But Huss, I mean, we know what the facts are. The facts are the Jets' number one choice is none other than Barry Trotz. Now that they're going to need to find out if the Jets are Barry Trotz's number one choice for Barry Trotz.
Ken Wiebe with us. Make sure you're following on Twitter at Wiebe's World and check out his work covering normally the Jets, but also the NHL at Sportsnet.ca. You are on the grind for the Avalanche Blues series. Man, I was getting some 2019 vibes last night from the way Binnington was playing. What a huge win for St. Louis to get back in this and steal home ice back from the number one team in the West.
Yeah, massive hustle, man. I wish I was in that arena. It looked like the atmosphere has just been so festive in the first, even in Laos. Like it's just been bonkers in Ball Arena all year long. And I would love to be strolling down the streets of St. Louis where they still play Gloria at every single chance that they can get. As I wrote, masterclass from Craig Berube. in the last 2 days, even after game one, where they were thoroughly dominated to the tune of 106 to 45 shot attempts. He knew exactly what the problems were. Stop flipping the puck out into the neutral zone and letting the high-flying Avalanche attack you with so much speed that you're just hoping it's on the roller coaster. You're just hanging on for dear life. I love the line tweaks. I love the timeout call for the 5-on-3. I love the aggression of putting Pavel Buchnevich on a 5-man forward group instead of Scott Perunovich, who, again, we know he's a power play specialist, but he's a young guy who's got limited experience. I mean, and let's not kid ourselves. Ryan O'Reilly, absolute beast in this series, but David Perron, ageless wonder. This guy, he came back to St. Louis for a third time, and he became one of their most important players. Like this guy, in game one, David didn't have his legs, much like most players on the Blues, not named Ryan O'Reilly. But in game two, he was all over the map, accidentally and purposely landing on Darcy Kemper early, blocking shots, getting involved in scrums, chip plays off the boards, getting open for 1T clappers. I mean, David Perron is everywhere in that game. But a couple other things that I loved. Braden Shen moving back to center, Huss. He was he had an assist on the first goal, but very ineffective in game one. Didn't have his legs, not as physical. The low sticking penalty, I mean, you can take it or leave it on that one. But, they got him back on a line with the guy who was, him and Tarasenko had great success in 2019. Robert Thomas and Jordan Kyrou, excel together. So, we talk about coaching, and sometimes I think it's kind of overblown. I think a lot of it has to do with execution. But Craig Berube pushed all the right buttons in terms of his lineup for game two. He resisted the urge to go back to 12-6. He rolled with his 11-7. But the most important thing for me with the Blues was their demeanor, Huss. They knew they got their behinds kicked in game one, and they knew exactly what they had to do to fix it. And then they went out and fixed it. But it was calm, composed, and Craig didn't freak out, but he also didn't run away from what the problems his team were facing were. So I love the way that he coaches. I was around him in the early 2012 or 13 when he was still with the Flyers, and they had that great 7-game series against the Rangers. And just the way that he handles and conducts his business, and there's no surprise that they're playing the Avalanche tough. And now it's up to the Avalanche to see if they can respond. And that's exactly what the message from Jared Bednar post-game after game two was as well.
Well, I'm really interested to see what happens going back to St. Louis. I did have a ticket to get to 6 games. I mean, I did think that this would be different than a sweep beforehand, and obviously a huge win last night. I mean, Win will get that. And I'll tell you what, the St. Louis Blues, if they can get this series to 6 and then to 7 games, as we've seen, that is going to be a tough team to kill at the end. Speaking of tough teams to kill, the Tampa Bay Lightning are that team. We spoke yesterday that in some ways that should have been game 7 type desperation from the Florida Panthers, knowing what awaits them if they go down 2-0. Well, 2 seconds left. Kucherov strikes again to Colton. It's 2-zip. Are we going to be writing eulogies about the Panthers in 4 or 5 days? What do you make of the Battle of the Sunshine State?
Yeah, that was a shot to the solar plexus for sure. I'm still trying to figure out where Mackenzie Weegar. There was not enough awareness on that shift, Huss. You got to know what the time is. I mean, Gustav Forsling was already on the post. Nikita Kucherov, as great as he is, Huss, was the least dangerous player on the ice with his back turned to the play and the puck behind the net. For me, if Weegar is going to go in that situation, and he shouldn't have gone, he's got to A, have his stick on the ice, and B, close the 5-hole, because the pass was absolutely, Sean Reynolds and I were discussing this. He's playing chess when everyone else is playing checkers. But if Mackenzie Weegar holds his position, there's no easy lane to Ross Colton. There's no shot on goal. So to me, that's just a structural breakdown that you cannot have. The Panthers played well. They played a smart game up until that point. Their power play once again let them down, I think, for the playoffs, which is crazy when you consider the seasons that Huberdeau and Barkov have had. But they just have been getting lost in the defensive zone at times, and that's been absolutely crushing for them. Bobrovsky was, better in game 2 than he was in game 1, but still, Vasilevsky's the guy getting the job done. And now here's the thing for us. We know all about the stats about rebounding after losses. The Florida Panthers have left themselves almost zero margin for error. They need to win 4 out of 5 against a guy that almost never loses 2 straight. So they're going to have to play with a much higher level of desperation. They missed Mason Marchment up front. I mean, we saw Mason Marchment's breakout game was against the Manitoba Moose, Winnipeg Jets. They need more from their high-end players, and they're not getting it right now. And the Lightning are playing like champions. There's no doubt about it. The guys that lead them. So if I had told you that Ross Colton and Corey Perry were leading the Lightning in scoring, in goal scoring, would you think they're 3 wins or 2 wins away from another conference final?
No, I would have thought they would have lost to the Toronto Maple Leafs in round number 1.
Exactly.
Easier said than done. I mean, listen, the goaltending matchup, I think, is a big, big advantage for Tampa. And I don't know if we spend enough time talking about what John Cooper's been able to do behind the bench. And it's a tough matchup for Andrew Brunette, who wasn't even a head coach at the beginning of the season, and made the most of a very a great opportunity with a great team. But I have a feeling we'll be talking more about the Tampa Bay Lightning. Hey, just quickly before we get to the ice, Battle of Alberta, what a bananas first game. What do you think? What do you expect from the Oilers coming back tonight?
Boy, it's so interesting. I mean, Mike Smith, you would expect him to bounce back, but man, oh man, that was a tough go. What I do expect is for Jacob Markstrom to be better. So to be honest, it may not even matter what the Oilers do. What we've seen from Connor McDavid is absolutely exceptional. But without Leon Draisaitl, basically playing on one leg right now, they need more. It sounds crazy to say they need more. They put up 6. And I'm going to say this too. I love the fact that Jay Woodcroft said several times in his post game that, it seems obvious, but if you put up 6 against a team that's as defensively sound as the Colorado or the Calgary Flames, you should win the game. I mean, that's pretty evident. But the Flames top line, excellent job. And there too, like the ebbs and flows of games. I mean, Rasmus Andersson, completely, him and his partner, Noah Hannafin, both completely out to lunch on the tying goal, but they went right back and got it. Like they reset and had the ability to take over the game. So the Flames' depth is just better for me, Huss. McDavid has been otherworldly right now, and that's not a surprise. But, they need more from some of their other, guys down the lineup. And, I mean, the Flames are just at play. It was so hard for them to get past Jake Ottinger that you kind of felt like there was an offensive explosion on the horizon. And as much as people were ripping the goaltending, I mean, they should have put up double digits in that game. Let's be honest. There were a couple of situations in that game where it could have gone completely off the rails because of the way the Flames were really rolling and Johnny Gaudreau coming through. And, what a scene with the Tkachuk family. And that's another wake up. That's another wake up situation for me. People saying that Brady should not be.
Okay, let me ask you this. I've heard this sentiment quite a bit of people whining and complaining about people that are giving. I have yet to see anyone actually giving Brady Tkachuk a hard time. I've just heard a lot of people complaining about it happening. Are we creating something out of nothing that doesn't really exist? Or is there a large group of people that I've somehow missed that are mad online that Brady's having fun cheering on his brother now that he's out of the playoffs?
Yeah, I'm not sure it's a large group online, but I've seen some of the sentiment, and I know where you're going, Huss. I mean, sometimes these narratives take on a life of their own in the playoffs, but I mean, let's not kid ourselves. It's nothing wrong with a little brotherly love, and if he happens
who's having more fun than the Tkachuks right now during the playoffs? Nobody.
Both
Matthew on the ice and the entire family and the thing. Hey, listen,
Keith
we got to run.
Not wanting to toss the hat on the ice. Also tremendous. I mean,
Keith,
tremendous.
What that?
Keep having fun is all I'm saying.
A reality
if
show.
If you have a sibling playing, cheer them on as much as in any sport, NHL, otherwise.
You got it. Hey, listen, we got Jack Finley coming up next in just a second, so we got to run. But quickly tee up the show today, 5 p.m., where you guys will be breaking down all aspects of this heavyweight tilt between Winnipeg and Edmonton. Yeah, it should be tremendous. As you mentioned, kind of collision course between two of the best teams in the Canadian Hockey League. Brian Munz will join us midway through the show, but we've also got a great special treat. We're going to dig into the inquisitive mind of Brandon Wheat King's head coach Don McGillivray, who's very familiar with both of these teams. So Donnie coming right out of the gate at 5:05 should be an absolutely tremendous conversation with someone who's had to prepare to face both teams. So it's going to be a really great series.
We're going to be down at the Ice Cave at Wayne Fleming Arena for what figures to be a very festive atmosphere as well, and should be a lot of fun in the series. And we expected it to go. We'll probably go much like some of these other series could go the distance. And what we know for sure, two excellent teams with a bigger goal in mind, but they got to go through one another in order to reach that goal. Should be a lot of fun.
Well, hopefully I'll see you at the rink this weekend. Thanks for doing this.
My pleasure. Have a tremendous weekend, my friend.
5 p.m. tonight, Kenny and Rennie special round 3, Edmonton Oil Kings, Winnipeg Ice. You can check that at the Kenny and Rennie YouTube channel. All right, we're going to talk about that series and welcome in Big Ice Center Jack Finley in just a second. Before we do that, a big shout out to our friends at Knott Auto Corp. If you're thinking about a new vehicle for the summer, what are you waiting for? Start your search with the experts at Knott. Why not get into the car of your dreams at an incredible price with the help of the Knott team? And if you're thinking going electric, find out more about the Teslas on the lot as well as the Tesla Experience program to teach you everything you need to know about a switch to an electric vehicle. Knott Auto Corp is at Waverly and McGillivray, and they're online at knott.ca. Well, listen, it's not going to be very nice out tonight. The sun will come out tomorrow and through the long weekend, and it might not be relatively hot outside, but that doesn't mean we can't make the most of the weekend with the great taste of Little Brown Jug. And of course, Little Brown Jug has a cider they've just launched, which is fermented for 4.5 months from cold-pressed apples from an Ontario orchard using a mix of wild and cultured yeast. Dry and refreshing and gluten-free, along with some other great new products from Little Brown Jug, including the Queer Beer, Saison, Hefeweizen, and Folkfest Lager. Stop by their taproom or patio this weekend to try one of their new brews, and you can also check them out online at littlebrownjug.ca with citywide delivery services as well. Hey, we had our friends from Princess Auto join us. We were talking a little bit about the opening of the Gold Eyes season. Gold Eyes are on the road for the next 10 days or so, but we will have Bomber action next Friday. And if you're heading out to IG Field for any Bomber game this year, make sure to take part in the fun pregame at the Princess Auto tailgate party as proud sponsors of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Of course, Princess Auto, the place where you'll find the best deals on the most unique assortment of tools and equipment around. Everything you need to complete the projects on your list or start something new is at Princess Auto. 2 Winnipeg locations, Panet Road, Portage Avenue West, and you can shop online 24/7, 365 at princessauto.com. And hey, the weather might not be great outside, but a blizzard will certainly go a long way to making us feel a little more summery. Blizzards, well, they never went anywhere, but they're definitely back. Pop on over to our friends at the Nick and Nikki DQ group this weekend. The DQ Niverville, DQ Northgate, DQ Polo Park, and DQ St. Anne's for the taste of summer, the famous Dairy Queen Blizzard. And while you're at it, check out those new stack burgers, 6 of them. They are amazing as well. And hey, if you're sitting at home watching the games and you want to get the great taste of DQ from Nick and Nikki, all 3 Winnipeg locations are on your favorite delivery app. All right, we will hit the Preakness with Kirt Contois. We will have our own marble race before 3 p.m. But right now, let's get ready for tonight's Game 1 between the Winnipeg Ice and the Edmonton Oil Kings, and welcome in Big 6'6" center Jack Finley to Winnipeg Sports Talk. Jack, what's going on, man? Thanks for joining us on Winnipeg Sports Talk.
Thanks for having me on, guys.
You had to spend a week of practice. It was like the regular season at times when you guys were off for a little bit, but the bell rings tonight, and this really is a heavyweight tilt. How fired up are you and your teammates to go at it in a series that we've basically been waiting for all season long?
Yeah, no, it's it's very exciting for us. We've wanted to play Edmonton in a playoff series for the whole year, and me personally, I only got to play them one time since the trade, and playing in that game was probably the fastest game I've ever played in junior hockey. So this series is going to be fun and going to be a grind. So we're all really excited for it.
Let's quickly talk about the Ice getting to this point. 4-1 series wins in round 1 and round number 2. I mean, some big convincing wins. You did lose a couple games and bounce back big afterwards. I mean, you're the only player really with any significant playoff experience in your entire team. How the first couple series been from your perspective, and how has that helped you guys get ready for this serious challenge against Edmonton?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we've had an easy road getting here. PA and Moose Jaw were both two really tough opponents. They played us really hard, and I think it was really good for us to to learn from both of those two series. And we're lucky enough we got them done in 5. But it's been a big learning process for a lot of guys because, like you said, there's half the team or even more haven't played any playoff games. So, I think it's, a little bit of an adjustment at the start and, because the pace elevates. But, I think the team's done a good job so far. And, we're just, getting ready for tonight.
We mentioned that playoff experience. You had the 15 games with Spokane in 18-19. And I believe one other player had like a couple of games, but for the most part, it was a completely clean slate. So I'd imagine as opposed to a normal year coming out of normal seasons where there's been playoffs and you had this, I think there's probably more to build on for the first couple rounds for the Winnipeg Ice. But as I said, this entire season, I'm sure, even though you got to think about the next game, in the back of your minds, you've known that whoever's going to come out of the East is going to have to beat the other guy. And it was going to come down to Edmonton and Winnipeg at some point.
Yeah, like I said before, I think they're probably our toughest opponent that we've played this season, and I think we just try to focus on beating getting through PA and Moose Jaw. And I think in the back of our heads, maybe we knew Edmonton was going to come along, but now that it's here, it's just back to work and we're excited to play.
Jack, let's talk about your season. With the Winnipeg Ice, of course, you were one of the big additions in and around the WHL trade deadline coming over to Spokane. You bring the 6'6" frame, great draft pedigree and a lot of experience as well. What do you think about the team that you joined, and how have things gone for you personally since you joined the team here in Winnipeg?
Yeah, you know what? I'm so grateful that I got put in and traded to Winnipeg. I was obviously sad leaving behind Spokane, but for me, I just wanted an opportunity to go on a deep playoff run, and Winnipeg was for sure the number one team that I had wanted to go to, and there's just so many insanely good players. Like it kind of blew my mind coming and skating with these guys the first day, and the coaching staff has done an amazing job reining in the group, and it's been amazing for my development and to play with these guys. It's been awesome.
Tell us about it. We've had some great chats with James Patrick on the program throughout the year. He obviously is a incredibly respected former NHLer, much like your father. How has he helped you? And tell us about the role that they've had you play since joining the club.
Yeah, James has been amazing. He's the thing about coaching in the dub is everyone's got their own way of doing it, and his way has been awesome. And he's obviously had a background in coaching the NHL for a long time, so he knows what he's talking about, and he's very smart. He knows how to get the best out of every single guy because I think every guy needs to be treated a little bit differently. And for me coming in here, I didn't really know all the players and what type of games they played. So I think it was a little bit of a feeling out process on, what can I do to help the team? And, I think for me, just playing heavy, being good on face-offs and PK and being kind of a shutdown guy who can also produce offensively. That's something that I've tried to do. And, it's if the team's winning and I'm doing that, then I'm happy.
Jack Finley from the Winnipeg Ice is with us. Game 1 tonight between the Ice and Oil Kings out at the Ice Cave. You come here. It's pretty clear if you see you walking amongst your teammates. You're a big dude, 6'6". You mentioned playing that heavy game. Is the playoffs the time when Jack Finley shines?
I tried to. I think, the playoffs, you watch the NHL playoffs, it's a big man's game. And, I got blessed with having size. So, for me to get the best out of my game, I try and use that as much as I can. And, maybe be a leader for the team in that sense, trying to be physical and, making sure that, guys can follow behind me and be physical too.
Now, Jack, you're a second-round pick of the Tampa Bay Lightning. I have to ask you, being the property of the two-time defending Stanley Cup champs, what the experience was like at Tampa Bay Lightning training camp and being around not just so many guys, like many that are pretty much shoo-ins for the Hall of Fame, but going into a room with that sort of championship pedigree, and real greatness. So back-to-back cups, and now continuing to do what they're doing in this year's playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, my first camp was during COVID, and I didn't really expect to get invited to it because it was a short roster, but I was fortunate enough to. And I mean, going in there, I was very nervous because I had been watching this team that had just won the Stanley Cup and so many amazing players, and it was such a dream come true. And I think the main thing is, obviously they're great hockey players, but the way they treated me and the other younger guys was amazing. Hedman, Kucherov, Point, Stamkos, they're all such great leaders. And, for me, I just try to go in there and try and pick up little things and just watch them. And, it honestly blew my mind how good they were. So it was a really cool learning experience.
I know job one right now is on the Western Hockey League playoffs, but you've still been keeping an eye on the parent club and seeing what they've been doing both against the Leafs and this big 2-0 series lead against the Panthers.
Yeah, I'm definitely rooting for them again. They sure know how to win. They keep playing great and keep finding a way to win. So I think there's a lot of things that they do that our team can even learn from. So I know we've all been watching them.
I've got to quickly ask you about your family. I mean, of course, your father was a longtime NHL defenseman, and I, just kind of thought of him as the Islanders. But as you mentioned beforehand, he actually did play in the final year of the Winnipeg Jets. Did he ever tell you what it was like to be a member of the team here in the Peg?
Yeah, he got me ready for the weather, I guess. Is I think the first thing he told me is, bring your winter jackets. But
it ain't Kelowna.
Yeah, no, definitely not. But no, he loved his time here, and I wasn't born back then, so obviously I didn't get to experience that with him. But he said he loved Winnipeg, he loved the organization, and I think he was a little bit sad to leave Winnipeg. But when they went down to the desert, I think he was excited for the weather.
Yeah, well, I can imagine that was one thing. I mean, it was a brutal time for the city to lose the team, but a number of players, they got to continue it. And the bottom line is we've got so much hockey now. We've got the Jets, the Moose, and the Ice. The two pro teams are out now. It's all eyes on you. We've seen growing interest in the team throughout the year. We've seen the bigger crowds and great atmospheres in the playoffs. How excited are you and your teammates to get out in front of a packed crowd tonight and get at it in this highly anticipated series? And how big of a help can the fans be for your club?
Yeah, the fans have been awesome, actually. I think it's a little bit of a smaller barn, but it's always, sold out and packed and really loud. And I think, having home ice advantage, having your fans behind you, such a big advantage for us. And we're really excited, and I think the fans are going to be excited too.
Well, this is going to be a phenomenal series. We've been waiting for it. It is here tonight and Saturday, 7 p.m. at the Ice Cave before the series heads west to Edmonton. Jack, thanks so much for doing this. Good luck to you and your teammates tonight. We'll be out at the rink cheering you guys on, and hopefully we'll maybe have some time for some more chats in the coming weeks if you guys can continue staying alive.
Awesome. I appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
All right, great stuff with Jack Finley. 7 o'clock tonight is game number 1. 7 o'clock tomorrow night, game number 2. Hope to see some of you out there. If you haven't seen the Ice so far this year, they are the real deal, but so are their opponents, the Edmonton Oil Kings, top 2 teams in Canadian junior hockey for most of the year. It will be well worth your time to get out to the Ice Cave, and I'll hopefully see you there. In addition to checking out what's happened at the Ice Cave, probably a great weekend to post up with the fellas and the gang at Boston Pizza for all the great action in the National Hockey League playoffs, some great NBA as well, and not to mention golf all afternoon with the PGA Championship. When you're at BP, you'll be chowing down on those famous Boston's wings, gourmet pizzas, ice-cold schooners. And if you're staying home and want the great taste of BP, check out their game day deals and order online at bostonpizza.com. And hey, we're less than 2 weeks away from horsing around again together out at Assiniboia Downs. Opening day is on May the 31st. And we're going to be talking horse racing right now. I still can't get over what happened at the Kentucky Derby. The second leg of the Triple Crown goes tomorrow at Pimlico. It's the Preakness Stakes, and we can't have a Triple Crown race without bringing Kirt Contois from Assiniboia Downs on to give us a little bit of a thought. Kirk, what's going on? How are you?
I'm doing excellent, Hustler. Getting ready for opening day. Our entries are actually next Friday for the following Monday or following Tuesday racing that starts off the season Tuesday and Wednesday. And we got 4 stake races. So it's going to be a couple exciting days to start it off with all the stakes.
No doubt. Everyone chowed down at the world famous buffet at ASD yesterday with the big launch of the season. And now we count down to the 31st and then get going with Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday live racing throughout the summer and into the fall. Hey, listen, before we talk about the Preakness, we had you on the day before the Derby. We talked about all the horses in. I'm not sure the name Rich Strike came out. I don't even know if we knew that he was in the race at that time. I just quickly have to ask you about the Kentucky Derby and the historic 80-1 upset that we witnessed in one of the most thrilling races of all time in the sport.
Hustler, it was the underdog getting the job done with Manitoba connections to it. Rich Strike was able to weave his way through the pack and get it done at 80-1. He was the longest shot on the board. As we were talking a little bit earlier, a couple of friends did have $5 win wagers. What did that $5 return them? $400. And on ASD Live, I was telling you, I took Smile Happy, who ended up in 8th place. But I took a bet, the exactor with all, and then him for second with all for first. I didn't get it, but if I would have took Epicenter, I would have got that exactor, which paid $4,100. But it's the money that was available that's crazy. $25 million just in the exactor pool. Absolutely astounding amount of money.
What would a $2 exactor have paid? If you had a $2 Rich Strike Epicenter, what was that $2 ticket worth at the Derby?
$4,100. But Hustler, when we were talking about it the day before, Rich Strike wasn't even in the race. The horse got scratched late, the 20 horse. And because there's extra horses sitting on the sidelines, just in case that happens, Rich Strike was in because the other one was out. If not, he would have been just sitting there grazing, watching the race on the outside, but he ended up getting in. And so we never even got to talk about him. Not that I would have picked him in there, but he wasn't even a thought at the time.
Certainly one of the most historic wins in racing history and I believe the second biggest upset by the numbers in the history of the Kentucky Derby, which brings us to the Preakness. Where's Rich Strike? No Triple Crown. You don't win the Derby. You don't come back and try and keep it rolling.
See, the one thing about the Triple Crown is I think within the coming years, there's going to be an adjustment because this race is 14 days back. And a lot of these horses that are the top horses in the world, it's 3 to 4 weeks in between races for them. So it's coming back real quick. And the last thing you want to do with a young, especially a young horse like a 2 and a 3-year-old, the 3-year-olds are in the Preakness, are get them injured or run them when they're not 100%. And that's why so many go in the Derby, they duck the Preakness, and then they come back in the Belmont.
Well, that's not the case for Epicenter. A close but no cigar in the Derby. Epicenter is the favorite. We're looking at opening lines 6-5. You've got early voting 7-2, Secret Oath 9-2. Those are sort of the clear top 3. You got one other horse in single digits, Simplification in 6-1, and then 5 other horses from 10 or larger. Is this Epicenter's race to lose in your mind, Kirt? I mean, how big of a favorite is Epicenter, and how big of a favorite should it be?
Epicenter will be the big favorite on the board, and deservedly so, because in the Derby, the horse ran a winning race as Zandon, the other one that was the second favorite, came from the back of the field to challenge him as he already made his move. And he would not let Zandon buy down the lane. But what he did was he didn't see the inside horse, Rich Strike, who ended up getting him in the end. So I think that was a great race by Epicenter. And what I really like about it, a lot of these horses since their last race, because it was so quick, they didn't get workouts coming back, their little morning breezes. they get, but they never got a workout. Yet Epicenter did get a workout 9 days after the Derby, a little short half mile. But what that means to me, he's ready to go, and I love seeing that workout.
Well, I mean, if you don't want to hit the chalk with the short favorite as Epicenter, where else should we be going? And I mean, if you were filling out a little triactor wheel, who are the other horses that you're going to be sticking in? Who do we like outside of the big favorite?
Well, outside of the big favorite, I like a 10-1 shot, the 2 Creative Minister. This horse has run 3 times at 3 different racetracks. 2 of them were in the maiden race, never winning a race. It lost by a close one, and then won easy its next one. Went into a tougher race at a different racetrack and won easy. And the horse's numbers keep getting better each time. And that is a horse that could be peaking. Those numbers are lower because they're not stakes races. But what the horse is showing me, it's improving every start. So I like the 10-1 odds. I'm putting him for second.
Nicely done. So we've got Epicenter as the favorite. We've got Creative Minister, and I guess you'll be looking at maybe an Epicenter, a Creative Minister, Quinella, or go with the Exactor with the favorite in 1 and the Minister in 2.
Yeah, go for the Exactor. I like playing straight tickets. I also like Simplification. The 1 horse was well back in the Derby, made a really nice rally down the lane. Did finish 4th behind the top 3, but beat the rest of the field. So you have to have respect. Secret Oath, the 4, it's a girl against the boys. Last time she ran against the boys, she ran 3rd. And the 2 horses that beat her, both in the Derby, ran 19th and 6th. And the trainer said could have won the race. But even winning the race, those horses finish in those positions. I think Secret Oath really will have to have her running shoes on to get the win. But I think she might be able to get 3rd or 4th.
Before we go, considering what happened at the Kentucky Derby with Rich Strike at 80-1, how much steam do you think the long shot Fenwick at 50-1 will get just because of what happened at the Derby?
Well, I think a lot of people are licking their wounds because they weren't on the Rich Strike bandwagon. So backing Fenwick in here against Epicenter, that's going to be a tough task. But because of what everybody saw, they just might put a little tiny bet on the side, maybe take Fenwick with Epicenter and try and get a tractor, because the tractor would still pay really well if Fenwick even got 2nd and 3rd.
I'm going to roll with you, Kurt. We'll have a little HPI action on Creative Minister on the weekend, and maybe we'll throw in Epicenter and Secret Oath for a little triactor wheel as well, as we learn more about the ways we can bet online, as opposed to the good stuff, which, of course, is May 31st, opening day. Just fill us in on the vibe around ASD. I know we had to wait an extra week or an extra 8 days this year from when it was originally scheduled, but exciting times coming up. Hopefully some nice weather and some great action out at the track.
Oh, yeah, no doubt about it. Most of our jockeys are in. We're only waiting on a couple of more to fly in this weekend. And the horsemen are excited for opening day. And as I said, Friday is the day that we enter for those races running on Tuesday. And people are already chomping at the bit, wanting to enter their horses, but we're not going to let them until Friday. So the vibe is good, and we're ready to go at ASD.
Well, and I know the prime rib buffet will be ready to go, and everything else that happens in and around it. Listen, say hi to Sharon and Sherry and Darren and the gang. We can't wait to see you guys out there coming up on the 31st and throughout the summer at Assiniboia Downs. Thanks for doing this, Kurt.
No problem, Hustler. Thanks for having me on.
And good luck tomorrow in the Preakness. There he is, Kirt Contois from Assiniboia Downs. Well, Remis and I will be going head-to-head again. I have unfinished business after taking the L to him in our season handicapping competition last year. We'll get going with that on the 31st of May for the first day of live racing. All right, we still have some business to take care of, everybody. Friday afternoon, you know what that means. It is marbles time, or it will be very shortly. And of course, we do that courtesy of our friends at Canadian Club. We're kind of hoping it might be better weather to grab a 6-pack of the ready-to-drink Canadian Club and ginger ale and enjoying the sunshine, maybe later on in the weekend. But the bottom line is you don't have to wait. You can pick up 6 packs of the new ready-to-drink CC and ginger ale at your local Manitoba Liquor Mart or at your local beer store. And, of course, if you're popping into your Manitoba Liquor Marts, also check out the displays with the OG Canadian Club, Canada's favorite Canadian whiskey. We will get to the Coolbet lines in a minute, but let's just bring Michael Remis in here. And, Remo, I don't know, this could be guest-wise, one of our busiest weeks ever. Certainly, we've had great turnout in the chat, great turnout in YouTube. Pod downloads are up, but the amount of quick change from guest to guest has been keeping you busy, I'm sure. But now we're at the end of a great week, and you know how we finish it.
Yeah, this has been a lot of fun, and you're right. Usually we have about 1 to 3 guests a show. There's been a number of shows this week where we've had 4. And it's been a couple quick changeovers, but we're good. Before we get in, I want to give a couple shout outs here in the chat. I see, let me scroll up here. I believe it was Roland who comes in. He says, I work too much. How do we get in on the marble race? I've only listened on the podcast. What's up, Roland?
You're in the right place at the right time, my friend. Get ready. We're going to roll it all out for you.
So, yeah, we'll should I just do it now? Hit out the command here?
Oh, sexy chat XYZ.
Oh, he's back? Oh no.
Yeah, sexy chat is back.
The sex
sexy
bots.
Time.
They know what time it is.
She's
Friday.
Back. Sexy chat wants in on the marble race.
And then one other shout out. Joe Long popped in during that segment with Kirt. He says, I finally found a live hockey YouTube show. And they're talking horse racing. And I was like, yeah, Joe, we spend, majority of the show on hockey, playoffs, Jets, Barry Trotz. But we do get into other topics as well. So
it's
welcome.
all secondary to marbles, Joe. Buckle up. We're going to have some fun with this. But yeah, hit that red subscribe button and make sure to join us daily at 1 p.m. I would say it always depends on time of year, but the hockey scene, the Winnipeg hockey scene, the Jets, the Moose, the Ice will always be big stories here on Winnipeg Sports Talk. And of course, the Canadian Football League coming up. First and foremost, what's ever important to Winnipeg sports fans, we try and deliver that. And of course, have some fun and talk about all the other big stories in the world of sports, Monday to Friday, next week, Tuesday to Friday, because of the long weekend. But again, so listen, let's roll this out. We can open up the entries, which Remis has done. So Joe and Roland and anyone else new, make sure you've hit the red subscribe button so you're eligible to win. And then simply in the chat, put in !marbles. You only need to do it once. We'll grab all the names in a second. We'll throw them in. And we will give away to our winner one of the Winnipeg Sports Talk hoodies that we did with our friends over at Canadian Club. And hey, shout out to Alana Sutton. Alana going for a back-to-back win. We've never had that before. Alana came by and picked up her hoodie yesterday. Appreciate her listening and everyone that makes Winnipeg Sports Talk part of their week, their routine, and especially the Friday program when we drop the marbles. So yes, if you want in, it's completely free. Just put in !marbles in the YouTube chat. And while you do that, let's get to the Coolbet lines for tonight. Of course, our friends at Coolbet, Chris Abbott joined Dustin Nielsen and myself on the Lock Shop earlier. Picks for tonight, picks for the weekend are all up there for you at Hustlerama on Twitter, at Nielsen TSN 1260. And, of course, on your favorite podcast feed, search Lock Shop and subscribe. All right, you know what? I'm going to actually start off not with the National Hockey League, but the WHL. We have lines. They finally figured out that the Kootenay Ice are now the Winnipeg Ice. That's been changed. That's nice. And the Ice are a -152 favorite at home in game number 1 of the Eastern Conference Championship. Edmonton Oil Kings, the road team, +114. And the other series, Seattle Thunderbirds at the Kamloops Blazers. Kamloops -122, Seattle -109. As far as the National Hockey League goes, 2 games tonight. The Rangers and the Hurricanes. I'll be honest, I put a little sprinkle on the Rangers tonight. Loved the way they played in that first game. I thought they probably deserved a better fate. I think they and Ilya Shesterkin will be ready to go tonight and maybe can give the Canes their first loss on home ice of the playoffs. If you like the Hurricanes, -161 on the money line. And then tonight it's the Battle of Alberta, +151 for the Edmonton Oilers, -172. Although I'm taking the under. It's 15 goals in the first game. Something's got to give. I think Markstrom's much better tonight, and I would imagine the Oilers will be better both defensively and in net. So I'm actually gonna take that under 6.5. You can get plus money on it right now, plus 103 on the under for tonight's game. And Calgary, if you do like the puck line, minus 1.5, win by 2, plus 138. Blues tomorrow, plus 141, home underdog to the Avalanche, who are minus 167. And on Sunday, I guess, it'll be Sunday afternoon game, Panthers and Lightning. Lightning minus 114, Panthers minus 103. Panthers staring a 3-0 deficit in the face if they can't get a win. All right, Reem, those are our Coolbet lines. Hey, if you haven't played a Coolbet before, use the promo code WST for a 100% bonus on your first deposit, up to $200. And if you want more on the golf, on the basketball, Jays this weekend, make sure to tune into today's episode of The Lock Shop. All right, Reem, we want to gather the names, and we can get ready for the festivities known as the ever-popular WST Marble Race.
Sure. Last chance to get them in. How many do we have now? I'll look it up. We got 138 names. So usually we have about that. I see not everyone in chat is, typing it in. We got 280 people in here. What's up? Thanks, everyone. What a great week it's been. And if you missed anything, check out our videos, of past streams, or I've been clipping some of the Jets related segments with, Craig Button yesterday was excellent. It's getting a ton of viewership. Murat on Wednesday. And there was one other one as well. Oh, yeah, us talking about, the Barry Trotz news. Well, that he was getting an interview. We were in, people were commenting in that. It's like, you guys are just like giddy. The fact that he is getting an interview. And we're just
correct. Guilty as charged. Guilty as charged. Hey, it's been a great topic on the program. There's a lot of excitement amongst Jet fans that could be a possibility. And we're definitely going to be talking about it. But yeah, for Joe, as I said, if you want more hockey content, at least specifically about the team and what we've talked about this week, best bet, go to the YouTube channel. As Remis just mentioned, he's been doing a great job clipping some of the key segments of the program. If you weren't able to hang with us for the full 2 hours, and get that out there. And it's all there at the Winnipeg Sports Talk YouTube channel, which if you're watching with us right now, you're already here. Red subscribe button and join us on the daily. All right. So, if you're not familiar, and by the way, this is the most fun part of the week. I mean, if half the people have not entered the marble race, I guess my question is, what the heck are you doing? Just put in exclamation mark marbles. Remis is going to finish it up, or I guess we've now finished it up. We've closed it up, and now it's time to load up the names. Who else are we going to add in? Barry Trotz is definitely getting a marble this weekend, Reem.
I think people want him to have like a permanent marble, unless he signs somewhere else, and then if he doesn't sign with the Jets, then he's banned. Yeah.
Yeah, Trotz gets a marble every week until there's some sort of clarity.
I'll do
and if, of course, he does become the head coach of the Winnipeg Jets, he's going to get a lot more than a marble from those of us here at Winnipeg Sports Talk. So we'll put in Barry Trotz, we'll put in Naylor, we'll put in Jack Finley,
Barry Trotz, Dave
Naylor, and then Kenny Wiebe.
Yeah.
And Kirt Contois. Actually, and we should probably put in Rich Strike as well.
Rich. Oh, maybe Rich Strike can pull a Rich Strike.
If Rich Strike wins this, that would be truly incredible. And again, those are our fun ones. If those marbles win, we'll give the first prize to the second place marble. And yes, we do have our own version of the Masters green jacket. It is the Canadian Club Winnipeg Sports Talk collab hoodie. And I think we've pretty much got all sizes still right now. So I hope we've got you hooked up. If you do win, hit us with an email at winnipegsportstalk@gmail.com, and we'll set up a time for you to pop by and pick it up. All right, Remo. So we've got the names in. Where are we going today?
Well, before we go, I think it's time to hit the music.
That's right. Tristan, let's go.
Oh, I hit the wrong thing. Sorry. 1 sec.
right, just about ready to drop the marbles to finish off a packed week of Winnipeg Sports Talk. Again, don't forget, Ice tonight, Oil Kings, Friday and Saturday, 7 p.m. at the Ice Cave. I'm going to take in some games. We'll certainly look forward to seeing you there. And just before we drop the marbles, quick PGA update for you for the PGA Championship. Justin Thomas in the lead, 6 under. He's in the clubhouse. Will Zalatoris is 5 under. Rory McIlroy and Abe Answer are 4 under. Matty Fitzpatrick is 3. He's in the clubhouse. And at 3 under, Cam Smith, the mullet, looking good. I need him. Mito Pereira and Tom Hoagie as well. Xander Schauffele at 2 under. Looks like the cut number is going to be +4. So if your guys are in your pool or +5 or worse, they better make it up. Otherwise, they probably won't be playing on the weekend. And again, you can check out the up-to-date live Coolbet lines all weekend long for the PGA Championship. All right, Reem. Last week's marble race was one of our best yet. I'm looking forward to today. Where are we going? What course do we have for today and our competitors?
I picked one and I didn't like it, so I'm going on Alienated. I don't know what this is. It looks dark. You think it's too dark?
Here we go. Well, it's starting right now.
Should I hit it? Should we do this one?
Good luck to everyone in. We've got a UFO. This could be...
I don't know. Maybe too dark. Let me do one more. Sorry, I picked the first one.
Okay, that's fine. I think that might be one where the UFOs suck up the the marbles too.
We did that one. It wasn't good.
What about the Twisted Toothpick?
Yeah, I don't think we've done that for a while. I'll head Twisted Toothpick.
Have we done that one before? I don't remember that one.
I think we've done a lot of them now. It's just what happens when you play this game once a week for a year.
Well, I'm into it. If you can read this, your monitor is upside down.
All right.
Here we go. All right. The Twisted Toothpick. Good luck to everyone. Oh, by the way, hoodie for first place. Last marble across the line will get you a DQ ice cream cake from Nick and Nikki DQ. Shout out to, I believe it was Ticona Polly that got that. And a big thanks to Nick, who I believe arranged that even without me and ended up dropping it off. Great service from our friends over at Nick and Nikki. All right. Great week. Big long weekend coming up, but it's not the long weekend until we drop the marbles on Winnipeg Sports Talk. Remis, let's go.
There we go.
Big drop down. This is somewhat like a Plinko board, if you will, if you recall the greatness of The Price is Right back in the day. Big start. Coachy 53 in the mix. I see T-Bone in there. Trevor Frost looking pretty good. Wow, major loop-to-loop here. All the marbles going through and no real separation between our top marbles. And look, Manny Fran with a nice start. Manny Fran, a former winner at one point. I see Doug Phil here. This is straight up like a roller coaster. Reminds me of trips as a kid to Busch Gardens. Looks like Jay Malott's looking pretty good right now. Who else do we have here? Relaxing. My guy Relaxing's in the mix. Like to see Relaxing get in. Doug Phil. Where else do we have here?
Oh, there goes Mike Clay.
Tristan Rivers. Tristan Rivers right at the front right now. Wouldn't that be something if the artist of the hit single Marble Race, look at this, everyone is riding out. There could definitely be eliminations. Tristan's looking pretty good though. Is he going to stay in? Tristan Rivers. Could it be? Could it be? I think it is. Tristan Rivers music with the W. Oh, I don't know if we could have a better win. The guy that came, there's Kirt Contois going in. Tristan Rivers, the artist who put together the incredible theme song for the Marble Race, wins his first ever W. I know Candace had won before, but now Tristan also a blue hoodie winner as the winner of the Marble Race. Now, we are waiting to see what the final marble to get successfully in. It doesn't count if you get thrown over the top rope. That's an elimination. But the final marble across, we will hook up with a DQ ice cream cake from the Nick and Nikki DQ. We see Paul Carr. Oh, there still is a couple still waiting to come in. Shane, Paul. Who's this last one, Reem?
Theo Seegers is lagging behind.
Theo. Now, will Theo make it in or will he get burned? It looks like it. It looks like he's working it. There you go. Theo Seegers. All right. So Tristan, listen, congratulations. It's about time you got in the winner's circle. You've been with us from day one, and of course are the muse of the hit theme song. And Theo Seegers, nice work for being last. Both of you guys, just hit us up, Winnipeg Sports Talk at gmail.com. Tristan, I know you're in the neighborhood. We can get the hoodie to you right away. And Theo, if you're sending us the email, put in your phone number as well as which of the 4 Nick and Nicky DQs, Northgate, Niverville, Polo Park, or St. Anne's would be the easiest one for you to get the cake. And I'll talk to Nick. We'll get that set up, and he'll be ready to go. Probably be able to have that for you maybe even sometime later on in the weekend or early next week. Heck of a way to finish off another week, Reem. How about that? Tristan Rivers getting the dub.
What a win. What a win. You love that theme song. I've been joking around that we need like an acoustic theme song right now, like a slowed down acoustic version. I think
Tristan Rivers
funny.
Music Unplugged, Marbles.
Yeah, and we're still
The
waiting
remix?
for the CD where he does the Marble Race theme song, the Ken Wiebe theme song. So
I know. I think Tristan plays in some bands and does some gigs. I would be in. You know what? Maybe we'll do a special Winnipeg Sports Talk gathering, and we'll get Tristan just to bang out the hits.
If he did
Kenny,
a live
Kenny,
version,
Sean's headband, Marble Race.
just let me do backing vocals on Sean's headband.
I'll pay a lot of money to see you do backing vocals on literally any
band. Dude, man, I love that song.
Oh yeah, great message here. Stonewall Dave, huge dub for Tristan, true MVP of all Winnipeg and Jets online media chat rooms, no doubt about it. So yeah, congrats to Tristan and Theo. Hit us up. But yeah, Remo's got to go. I got to go. Hey, it's the weekend. Let's get after it, folks. Enjoy the ice games tonight and tomorrow. I'll be at least one of them, if not both. Say hi if you see me there. And if not, enjoy 3 days away. And we'll be back with a packed edition of Winnipeg Sports Talk on Tuesday. Dave Poulin will be back. We'll have our regulars as well. Latest on Trot's Watch, Stanley Cup Playoffs, Ice and Oil Kings, and so much more. Thanks to all the sponsors that make this show happen, and most of all, thanks to you for making us a part of your day. Have a great May-long weekend. We'll see you Tuesday right here on Winnipeg Sports Talk.
Oh, my God! Oh! Shut it down! Let's go home!
Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast feed at winnipegsportstalk.com.